Hi guys, I Aziz welcome you to CoedMaster, and in this video I am going to talk about Cloneable interface. In this video I will explain what is Cloneable interface, what is the significance of Cloneable interface and how it works internally. So if you are willing to learn Cloneable interface, then this video is for you. So make sure to watch this video till the end. So let's get started. Alright. So guys, let's start this video with the collection hierarchy diagram. So in front of you, you can see the diagram of collection hierarchy. If you look at this diagram, you will see all the blue color objects. These blue color objects are collection classes, okay? Let's say array list, linked list, array deck, so on and so forth. And guys, if you deep dive into source code of these collection classes, you will see something common. Let's go to array list class. In array list class, you will see that it implements Cloneable interface. Let's go to next class, that is linked list. Linked list also implements Cloneable interface. And if you go to array deck, you will see that array deck also implements Cloneable interface. So guys, the question over here is, what is so amazing about this Cloneable interface that all the collection classes are implementing this? Well, to understand Cloneable interface, let's go to source code of Cloneable interface. So if you look at this Cloneable interface, you will see that first of all, this Cloneable interface belongs to java.lang package, and this interface is an empty interface. This interface does not define any method. So what does it mean? This means it is a marker interface, as simple as that. Now the next thing is, in order to understand Cloneable interface, we have to go to object class and see the clone method of the object class. So let's head over to object class, and inside of this object class, you will see one method that is clone, okay? And if you scroll up a little bit, you will see the purpose of this clone method. Let's read this line: creates and returns a copy of this object. So guys, as we know that all the objects in Java inherits from object class, right? And there is one method in object class that is clone. And what is the purpose of this clone method? It simply copies the object and return it, as simple as that. But you might be thinking that what is the connection between Cloneable interface and clone method of the object class? Here it is. This clone method doesn't work automatically. We have to specifically tell this clone method that this class is eligible for cloning, okay? And how we do it? We have to simply implement the Cloneable interface. So let's see how can we do it. So let's head over to main class. Now let's create a class, okay? Let's create a class with name car, okay? And let's define few of the field of this class: private, final, int, id, private, string, make, okay? Then private, integer, doors, okay? So we have three fields here. First is id, then make of the car, and how many doors this car has, okay? Let's quickly create a constructor for all the fields. Let's quickly generate setters and getters for all the fields. So our car class is ready. Now let's implement Cloneable interface on this class. Cloneable. Okay, now let's check whether we are able to make a clone of this class or not. Car is equal to new car by passing it a id. Name of make of car is BMW, and how many doors are there? Let's say 4 doors are there, okay? Let's call car dot. Let's see the clone method, okay? Scroll. So guys, as you can see that clone method is not appearing here. This means we are not able to access the clone method. And why is it so? So now let's again move back to object class. So guys, if you look at this clone method here, this is just a method signature. There is no method body here. Why is it so? So if you look at this object class, this class is neither an abstract class nor an interface. Then why is it possible that this method does not have any method body? This is because of the native keyword, okay? So yes guys, first of all, this method is protected. This method is a native method. So what is the purpose of this native keyword? This native keywords indicates that this method is a native method, and the implementation of this method is given by native code, okay? And what does it mean by native method? The method which is written in native languages like C and C++ are called native methods, okay? So guys, you can see here the method body is not defined here. This means we have to override this method. So this means we have to override this method to provide the implementation of this method. Okay. So now let's go back to car. Okay. And let's go down. Let's go to override method and click on clone method. Okay. So now we are overriding the clone method of object class, and this method throws clone not supported exception. Okay. And inside of this method we are simply returning super.clone. Now here super is a keyword that is used to reference the parent class, and in this case the parent class of car is object. Okay. So we are calling clone method of object class. Okay. Now let's see, can we able to clone this object or not? Okay. So we have already created a class object. Now let's call car.clone. Here we go. Now we can easily access the clone method of the car object. Okay. And this method throws clone not supported exception. So now we have two options. Either we can catch this exception or we can throw it. So let's throw this error. So it will be managed by Java compiler. Okay. Now after cloning, let's store this clone object in obj variable. Okay. Now again it is giving error. Now error says this clone method is returning object of type object. So this means we have to cast this object into car object, right? And this is possible in Java, that the parent object can be cast to its child object. So now the cloning is done. Now let's try to print all the information about this car on the screen. Run the program and let's see what happens. And there we go. As you can see that the information about the car is printed on the screen. Make is BMW and doors are 4. So far so clear. So guys, I hope by now you understood that what is the purpose of clonable interface. So let me recall once again that clonable interface is a marker interface. The purpose of this interface is to specifically indicate the clone method of the object class, that now this is legal to make copy field by field of all the instances of car object. Okay. This is the main purpose of clonable interface, and the method that is responsible for cloning is clone method of the object class. Okay. So guys, let's move on to the next section of this video, where we see that what happens when we have composite objects, how clonable interface and clone method of object class behaves when we have composite objects. Okay. So now let's create two more classes. Go to source, new, and name it gearbox. Okay. This is one class. Let's define a property of this class, private int gears. Okay. Now let's generate constructor. Okay. Then let's generate all the getter and setters. And there we go. Now this is one class. Now let's create one more class, that is name is engine. Okay. Let's define one property of this class, integer and cylinders. Okay. So cylinder is a property of engine. Let's quickly generate constructor and then also generate all the getters and setters. So these two class is ready. Now let's use this class inside of car class. So this means now car object is composite object. It holds the reference of gearbox and engine object. Okay. So give it a name, gearbox. Okay. Engine. Okay. So far so good. So let's quickly create the setter and getter for engines and gearbox. Okay. We are good to go. Now our class is ready and we are good to go. Now let's go back to main method. Now create a new object for gearbox equal to new gearbox and give it a value as 4. Okay. Then let's create one object for engine. Engine is equal to new engine and number of cylinders are 6. Okay. Now let's set this gearbox and engine to car object. Car dot set gearbox, give it a gearbox. Okay. And car dot set engine, give it a engine, and we are done. Now let's go back to car class and create few more methods to set and get gears and cylinders. So public integer get gears. Okay, and similarly let's write one method to set gears. Okay, the responsibility of gear method is just to return gear number of gears. Okay, let's put a return keyword here. Okay, and the responsibility of set gear is to set gears. So gearbox dot set gears, and there we go. Now we need two more methods for engine. Okay, let's copy this method to save time. Okay, get cylinders and then call engine dot get cylinders, and similarly let's call it set cylinders. Okay, and engine dot set cylinders, give it a number of cylinder. Okay, so our classes are ready. Now let's clone this object and print all the values on the screen. Okay, so let's copy this and make it gears, obj dot get gears, obj dot get engine. Okay, so let's print both the information before cloning and after cloning. Okay, now let's update it to car, and car. Okay, again let's give it a line break. Okay, so far so clear. Now let's run the program and see. Okay, so as you can see that there is one mistake. Okay, so let's correct it. Car dot get cylinders. Okay, car dot get cylinders. Now let's run the program, and boom, now you can see that we have two objects. One is car whose value is BMW 4, 4 and 6, and we have one clone object that is also BMW 4, 4, 6. So we have successfully cloned the object. Now let's take this challenge to next level, and what we do, let's do one thing. After cloning, let's update the value of gears. Okay, so car dot set gears is equal to, before it was 4, now let's make it 5. Okay, and second thing, also change the cylinder of this car. So set cylinders is equal to 7. Now the car object has 5 gears and 7 cylinders, but this object must have 4 gears and 6 cylinders. Why? Because we are updating the gear and cylinder after cloning, so it must be 4 and 6 in this object, right? So let's run the program and see what happens. So guys, if you look at this output, you can see that the make is BMW, doors are 4. That is okay because both objects are clone of each other. Now if you look at these two properties, gears and cylinder, here the gear value is 4 and cylinder is 6. And after this step, we have cloned the object and we change the value of gear and cylinder. And this change is reflected on the cloned object. Here you can see that the gear is 5 and cylinder is 7. So do you guys realize what is happening over here? That if we are changing the gear and cylinder using this car object, it is reflecting in the cloned object. And why is it happening? Because of the shallow copy. This means the clone method is giving the clone of the car object, but it is a shallow copy. Now the question over here is, what is shallow copy? So to understand shallow copy, let's head over to Notepad and see how cloning works under the hood. Okay guys, now let's understand what does it mean by shallow copy. So here we have our car object, right? And this object is stored in memory. Okay, and this is our original object. And this object contains these two objects, gearbox, okay, and engine, right? So far so clear. Now whenever we are calling super.clone, if you remember that in clone method we are calling super.clone. So what this method does, it simply allocate a new memory for new object, that is a car object. Okay, so it copies all the fields from this car object and paste it to new object and assign a new memory space for this object. So far so clear. But the thing which is not done by this super clone method is, it's simply copying the reference of this object, these two objects, from this memory to this memory. As simple as that. This means this clone method is not creating new objects for gearbox and engine. That is why whenever we are changing the property of gearbox and engine object, it is reflecting in this object also. So this phenomenon is called shallow copy. But our target is to do a deep copy like this. So whenever we call super.clone, we are expecting to get the car object along with the new gearbox and engine object. Okay, so I will explain in a bit how we achieve this deep cloning. Okay, now let's head over to IDE and understand what is happening behind the super.clone method. So guys, let's go back to object class and understand this native keyword here. Okay, so basically what is the purpose of this native keyword here? This native keyword indicates the compiler that this method is a native method and it is implemented in native code, that is C and C++. So what does it mean? So this means this method has access to low-level calls like memory copy. The reason is pretty simple. As the method is written in C++, this means this method has access to low-level calls. Okay, and using that low-level calls, what it is doing? It is simply copying the reference that is stored in somewhere in the memory to the new cloned object. This is what it does. This clone method is not calling the constructor of this class, and even we have defined all the field as private, final and like this, still it is able to copy all the fields. How is it possible? Have you ever wondered? This is because of the native keyword. So as the method is implemented in native code, that is why it is ignoring all the access modifiers and the constructor also. So this clone method does all the things that normal Java method cannot do it. So this is the reason why we were getting the reference of old object instead of getting the reference of new object. Now the question over here is what to do to get the deeper copy of the object. So let's go back to car.java class and we have to modify this code here. Okay, so what do? We create object first of all car, okay, using super.clone method. Okay, and we have to simply cast this object to car object, and then we have to manually create object of gearbox. Gearbox is equal to new gearbox, give it a value that is 8 for example. Again let's create a new object of engine. Engine is equal to new engine, give it a value, let's say how many cylinders are there, 10. Okay, now let's set engine and gearbox to this car object. Okay, car dot set gearbox to gearbox and car dot engine set engine to engine, and now return this object car. Okay, this is all the modification we are required to do in order to get deep copy of the object. Okay, now let's go back to main.java. We have already created the car object here. We are setting gear and engine, then we are printing all the information, then we are doing cloning here, and then we are changing the value of gears and cylinder, and again we are printing all the information. Now we are good to go. Now let's run the program and see the difference. Now if you see it here, the make is same, make and doors are same. Now the gears and cylinder of this object is 4 and 6, and gears and cylinder of this object is 8 and 10. Now let's try one more thing. Let's change the make also, car dot set make to let's say Audi. Okay, and car dot set doors to, how many doors were there before? 4. Let's make it 3. Okay, let's make it 2. Now let's move this piece of code below this modification, and now let's run the code and see the difference. And boom, you can see that the make of object 1, that is car object, is Audi, doors are 2, cylinder gears are 5 and cylinders are 7, and the object that are cloned, the values of that object is BMW, make is BMW, doors are 4, gears are 8 and cylinders are 10. So now we are getting a deep copy of this object. The only thing we had to do is modify the clone method of object class. Okay, here what are we doing? We are manually creating the object of car, then we are manually creating the object of gear, engine, and then we are setting the gearbox and engine of this car manually, and then we are simply returning the value of car object. Okay, so guys, by now I hope you understood that what is the difference between shallow copy and deep copy and how to achieve shallow as well as deep copy. So this brings us to the next question, that why are we not using the new keyword and simply depending on the clonable interface? So the answer is pretty simple. So whenever we use new keyword, it's going to create the object from scratch. This means it's going to allocate a memory for that object and do all the background processing and then create all the variables once again and all those stuff. So to achieve all of these things, this keyword takes a lot of time and it is pretty much costly. On the other hand, if we implement the clone interface on any class and then we simply clone the object, it's going to be much faster than creating an object from scratch. So this is the only reason we use cloneable interface, to clone the object instead of creating it from scratch. And this technique really helps us in improving the overall performance of the system. So guys, on this note, let's end this video. So as usual, if you have learned something valuable from this video, then hit the like button in order to make YouTube happy. Please subscribe to the channel and don't forget to click the bell icon so my friend you never miss any upcoming video. So this is all from my side. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.